I like it though. I have some of the other articles that have been written about us as we traveled around the United States. And some of the articles go back to 1984, where I finally let newspapers and other people come see the technology, because I was having a hard time trying to convince people that it worked. I didn't understand all the physics behind why it worked. I quit school in 9th grade and became a carpenter. And when I got out in the field and was building homes, I didn't need to know about science, just how to drive a nail and how to put the next board in place. After I invented the device, people from all over the country that heard about it would come in and see it, and they all had the same question. Why does it work? Explain it. And I'd scratch my head and say, well, it works. If you want one, I'll build you one. I started applying in 1985 for patent. I was laughed out of so many patent attorneys' offices it wasn't funny. They wouldn't even waste the time to walk out the door and look at it. They just shook their head and said, I'm an engineer, and it can't work. Get out of here. You're crazy. It can't work. Get out of here. The resistance from the overeducated was extremely high. Many investors I approached over those years said, if it worked, you'd already be a millionaire. You'd be the richest man on the planet. They weren't interested in backing it. Some of the millionaires I met with, they looked at it and said, well, it looks good to me. It appears to be running, but I want someone who's educated to explain it to me. So they'd get their scientist friends to come over and look at it. Since they couldn't explain it, obviously it couldn't work. And a lot of them just came around and said, it's got to be a fraud. There's no way on this planet you can use that type of junk for fuel. One of the laboratories, which is owned by Mr. Sorensen up in Salt Lake City, the man's worth about $1 billion. We invited him to come over and see a few of the engines. He wasn't interested. Finally, he says, if you want to prove to me it works, bring it to my laboratory. Let us run a mass spectrometer test on it. Let's see what's in the exhaust. So we did. I went over and we ran it that day on 80% salt water and 20% battery acid. Now everybody knows that's a good fuel. Their scientists came out of the lab, hooked up the Tedlar bags to the exhaust pipe, pulled their samples out, and said, give us a call tomorrow, we'll let you know what we found. Next day I called up and they said it was a bad run. The only thing in the bag was clean, fresh air with a little extra oxygen that shouldn't have been there, because you don't find 22% oxygen in Salt Lake City. But they declared it to be a bad test. I said, no, it wasn't. That's what you're supposed to get out of an engine. So we came back, and about a block and a half before we got to the laboratory, I stopped the van, got out, went to the back, and I loosened up one of the fittings. My guy said, what are you doing? I said, if it has a little bit of a vacuum leak, it'll pollute a little bit. Then they'll believe it works. And they did. I went back and we ran it that day on crude oil. We were getting 5 parts per million of hydrocarbon coming out the tailpipe. It should have been pegged over 2,000. But we did prove it was running on an alternative fuel, clean. But they came back saying, there's things in here we can't explain. That couldn't be coming out of the tailpipe of that engine. So we won't give you a printout. BYU told me I'm not supposed to talk about it on TV or in newspapers anymore because they don't want to admit that the technology worked in their laboratory for 2 days. Nor did they want to talk about what they saw because it's not quite what they want to teach. But we hit that from every university in the United States. Molly and I spent 3.5 years traveling this country. We called Arizona State, we called UCLA, Berkeley, every university in every state that was close to where we were, and said, can we come down and show you our technology? One after another, they all said no. We're not interested. We hit TV crews from coast to coast, and at first we couldn't get them to come out. Now, we pick up the phone, we can get them to come out. There's been enough public awareness that technology like this does exist and has been covered up for over 100 years. One of the laboratories we invited to come see us was a total fluke. As we traveled through Oklahoma, I have a phone book with me of all the people that have contacted us. And I go down that list for every state when I'm there. We're in town, do you want to come see us? Well, one of the guys on the list, I called him up at home. His wife answers the phone and says he's down cleaning out his office. And she gives me a phone number. Well, he had gone to work where he worked at this laboratory and left his cell phone with one of the guys out in the field. So I dial his cell phone number, and the guy answers the phone. Testing laboratories. And I said, yeah, is Mr. Peterson there? He said, no, he just went to his office. He should be there in about 15 minutes. I said, what kind of testing do you guys do? He said, we're the main fuel research center internationally. And what kind of testing do you do? He said, we're the ones responsible for changing the formula of gasoline so that if any inventor ever came up with a product that worked, we'll change the formula to mess it up. He said, we're the ones responsible for Pogue not being able to work right, and Ogle. And he starts going down the list. He said, but we're shutting our doors. We've been open since 1932, and we finally found a carburetor we couldn't sabotage. I said, really? He said, yeah, it's called GEET. I said, how would you like to come down and see one in operation? He said, who are you? I said, I'm the inventor of GEET. He said, and you're calling here? He said, you're responsible for 87 scientists losing their job this month. I said, congratulations. None of their crew showed up, but it sure felt good knowing that all the stories I'd heard about how they changed this and how they changed that, they were real. In 1985, when I did my first TV coverage with a guy named Kent Pierce, and I hope he gets to hear this tape someday. But the next morning after that show, I received threats from the state of California, from oil companies, from government agencies, one after another, saying, if you put one of these on a car, you're going straight to jail. We're going to confiscate everything you own, and we're going to make sure you get at least 20 years. You're not going to put this technology on cars. There were a couple of them that were death threats. And back then I was a little bit edgy about what I'd invented, so I had a tape recorder by every phone. And I taped all the calls that day. About 4:30 that afternoon, I called the reporter back that had covered me the day before in the news. I said, hey, Kent, you think you had a story last night? You want a story? Listen to this. And I started playing death threats. So I got one agency after another after another. And he said, Paul, if you walk on water, I can't cover the story. And what? He says, you think you were threatened? He says, man, it all hit the fan here. If I ever cover a story about a technology like yours that works, I'll never be in this industry again. He says, I can't talk to you again, so have a nice day. Many rumors about, is the media suppression really there? Oh, yes, it is. Because it took me from then until 1995 to be able to get coverage again on TV. But awareness of the people has helped. When Molly and I first decided we had to get this out to the people because corporations are not interested in what we're doing, we sat there racking our brain for about 30 days. What's the best way to get this out there where they can't stop it and get it to the people so it's in their hands? She came up with the idea of giving away the plans as we travel around the United States at every Christian school that would allow us on our property. And they all did, one after another. The Baptist church said, come on in, we've got room here at the college. The Lutheran groups, all of them, one after another. And we passed the plans out. At that point, ABC and other stations are looking at this going, wait a minute, this isn't just a new company starting, this is becoming something where the people are getting more and more involved. Let's give these guys some coverage. So all of a sudden we're getting some 10-minute spots on the news, 30-minute TV specials. We've got a 2-hour TV movie right now being made in London. We have another one that just went up on the internet, half-hour long from Berlin at a university that did the filming. We now are getting universities from all over the world saying, we're going to teach your technology. If I can have 3 high school kids who didn't know my name, they were handed a set of plans. The teacher said, this is a challenge, build this. Got to see if it works. The teacher had told me that he was going to expose me when I got to California as being the biggest fraud he'd ever heard of in the world. And he was going to nail me to the cross. And I said, I'll supply the hammer, I'll supply the nails. But first, you supply me 3 students. We had the plans in the students' hands that afternoon. The following Monday, Molly and I arrived in California, and these boys showed up in their future farmers' outfits, and ties on and all, looking really nice. And they had the engine sitting in front of them. I walked over and took a look at it and said, that's one of the nicest looking ones I've seen. Now, put some fuel in it. Well, the boys grabbed their gas can, poured in about 1.5 inches of fuel, started it up. No pollution. It's just running nice and clean and smooth. And these 3 boys are just looking really proud. Yeah, look what we did. Well, ABC's there with their cameras going on these kids, and they're going, wow, we're going to be on the news. Fresno Bee, Visalia Times, other newspapers showed up. So these kids are just, hey, wow, look what we're getting, all this publicity. So they're all excited. Then, after about 15, 20 minutes, it ran out of fuel. As the bubbler level gets too low, it will stop producing enough fuel to run the engine. But it still had a little fuel left in it. So, the engine shut off, we open the jar up, and I pour in 16 ounces of coffee. Boys are looking at each other like, what's he doing? So then I reach in my pocket, pull out some sugar, thump it on the side of the jar, tear it open, I pour in some sugar. Now the boys are looking really confused, like, what are you going to do to our engine? Oh, don't worry. The engine loves coffee in the morning, especially with sugar. Let's go ahead and start it. They pulled the rope and ran it again for another 15 minutes. At this point, they don't know what to think. That defies everything they've learned before. Then we poured in some soda pop. About 95% soda pop to start the engine up again. And I walked off, just grinning. Teacher came over to me, Mr. Pantone, you said you're not welcome in public schools. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm the first teacher in the world in a public school that's going to be teaching this technology. Every student I have is going to know how to build one of these. He says, I dare them to fire me. I dare them to threaten me. He says, they're not going to stop me. Those are the people we're looking for, the people that have some guts. Today, it's a pleasure to have Bob Colvin here with me and his wife. The lawnmower sitting there in front of you was just filmed a little while ago by Fox News. When they first came out, they have a slight interest in what is it you have. As we explained to them that this unit was set up to run on gasoline through a vaporizer or bubbler, and once it's up and running for a few minutes, Bob proceeds to shut the exhaust off. So 100% of that exhaust coming out that muffler isn't coming out of there anymore. It's shut off. And we laid a napkin down on top of it to show them there's nothing coming out. We then ran the other little engine sitting right next to it. A little soda pop, transmission fluid, a little gas. We have some believers out there now. I mean, these guys were excited. They said, we got to get you on the news more than 1 or 2 times here. This has got to get out. We've got to do a TV special here. We've got to go back and talk to the producer. I mean, do you know what this is? Yeah, I've known it for 20 years. It's a solution. There is no pollution coming out of some of these units. Why? We can do it to everything. We just need more people that can help us in the training. We need more people to be salespeople. We need installers. We need shops all over the world. When Molly came up with the idea of giving away the plans on the internet, I was a little nervous on that one at first, but she said, honey, in memory of the 20th or 25th anniversary of OPEC nailing us the first time, these went up on the internet. There were scientists from all over the world, including the gentleman who drew this and put it on the internet, who had been saying that I was a fraud. The technology can't work. After they went up on the internet, 2 days later, this gentleman sends me a photograph of a lawnmower. There are only 2 sentences under it. It does work, and it seems to work better when you add water. So, after all the years of fighting, there is no more fighting. It does work. We're opening schools now in Salt Lake. In our school program, which is $1,500 for the week, you'll come in and you'll go through an 8-hour to 10-hour day of learning the physics behind it. And I say learning because out of the 38 phenomena that we've discovered and isolated so far, 31 of them are not found in science books. So you don't have a reference point to go back to. When you come into my classroom, I have to be able to teach you, and it's going to take all day, every single part of what makes that GEET work, all the different phenomena that we understand. I've listed most of that now on the website. And I've asked universities from Berlin to Beijing. Now I'm ready to start putting it out to the public, and I want the public to know exactly what's happening. So I want your help. And one after another, they're calling in saying, you got it. It gave me real good pleasure yesterday when I clicked on to see my email. One of the emails that came in said, new GEET movie in German. I went, what? Okay, I got to see this one. Everyone is out there playing with the technology. They're all looking for something different. They want to know what the EM fields are. They want to know, how am I breaking down carbon to become hydrogen? And why is there helium sometimes found in it? Where did the sulfur go? Why is it that crude oil and salt water have more energy? You're looking 25 to 50 times more energy per gallon from crude oil than you have in gas. But let's go back to basic physics. What is energy? Heat. Where did all the heat in the fuel go? Up the smokestack so they can make other products. Gas is a waste product. Most people aren't aware of why we have gas-powered cars. Ford was not going to build gas-powered cars. But he was a little short on money building his foundries. They approached him and said, hey guy, you put gas-powered engines in your cars, and we'll give you the money to build your foundry. That's a pretty good deal. But he knew at the time it would pollute like hell. He still did it. Our country's been running on the same type of thinking all along. It's all based on money. Here in Arizona, when I got here, we called the governor's office, your air quality control board, all the different agencies that regulate pollution. How many people from any of those organizations are here right now? Isn't that funny? I never see a hand in any audience. I pinned some of them down and said, why don't you guys ever show up? And I said, it's not part of our program. We only do what we're told we can do by the EPA. If it isn't EPA approved, how many of you heard that expression before, EPA approved? How about EPA certified? Well, here's a letter that was given to me, faxed to me. I had 7 of them sent to me the same day. And these letters that were sent to us from the EPA in Washington, D.C. and in Michigan, they all say that the EPA does not approve, endorse, or certify any device for aftermarket. They can't legally do anything other than report. They're just a reporting agency. They have no legal authority to enforce any of their findings. I don't volunteer. So what I'm doing is totally legal. I can put it on all the cars I want. I've challenged the state of California. I put in my challenge here to Arizona. I dare you to arrest me or any one of my customers if they're reducing pollution on their vehicle 95% and getting double to triple the mileage. I'll be the first one in line you can cuff. And they've all said, one after another, we're just going to turn our back and walk off. We cannot stop you. So we've been buffaloed for many years, and there were a lot of inventors I've known out there that were working on carburation devices that they knew they couldn't afford the millions of dollars to go for EPA approval that doesn't exist in the first place. As we traveled around the country, we constantly had R&D going on at the shop. We have our own analyzers so we could test every machine coming in the door, going out the door. We knew what different fuels were. I've got thousands and thousands of pages of test results. I've withheld that from the public all this time because I didn't feel it was needed yet. Now it's all going to be posted up on the internet. So if you want to know what fuel puts out what pollution on what kind of an engine, if we've got the test, it's going to be posted. We also have the test showing the temperatures of the room, how long the engine ran, which model we used, how long it was, what the rod clearance was. All of that's going up on the internet. I withheld as much of this as I could from the public because Molly came up with a genius idea with those plans on getting them out to everybody in the world, that every single person out there that had a set of these plans that was playing with it. was another R&D shop. And boy, did we get R&D. When you figure about 10,000 people playing with the same technology and no two of you think the same, all of a sudden your phone rings at 8 o'clock in the morning going, did you know you can make a synthetic propane that you can bottle? You can use coal, tire, wood, garbage, anything. I'm bottling it up and selling it to all my neighbors, and they can't tell the difference. Other than it smells better. I said, how are you putting the odor in it? Old Spice. He smolders the tires in a smoldering box, pulls the vapor off that, runs it down through a bubbler, but the bubbler is filled just with water and a little Old Spice. That vapor is then pulled off, pulled through a furnace, and with a regulator on the bottom, he can regulate how much extra fuel he wants to make to start filling propane bottles. And the neighbors are all happy paying 25, 30 cents a gallon for propane. Hey, yeah, fill them all up. But when they're burning it, they notice it's a lot cleaner burn. It smells pleasant. It smells like fresh flowers. Makes the house smell good. We have other people using tires. We've had other people using their septic tank to run their generators. The list of different applications of what you can use GEET for is phenomenal. It just goes on and on and on. Some people have said, well, if it fits an engine, it's a carburetor, then how do you use it as a furnace? That's a simple piece of steel. Comes in 3 and 4 foot sections. It's right next to the threaded rod in every hardware store in America. It's about $3 a stick. So what does it really cost hardcore to put this little tiny 50-cent piece into the center of an exhaust pipe? That's how complex a GEET is. You can vaporize it, you can use injectors, you can use bubblers. Any way of vaporizing the fuel can be used. The rod is the only thing consistent between that vapor, the heat exchanger, where 31 of the phenomena occur around this rod, and mixing it back into the engine. It can be a simple butterfly, it can be a spring-loaded, it can be a vacuum control. There's as many ways to build a GEET as there are pieces of equipment. But since technology fits anything that uses fuel, that means every piece of equipment we have right now on this planet that uses fuel is obsolete. They all need to be rebuilt with a GEET or replaced with a newer unit. It would take too long to build that many billions of pieces of equipment, so we need to get out to the biggest markets we can as fast as we can. Many people have asked why I've used bubblers all along. Well, if you do understand all the principles behind what's happening in here, there are 14 different natural vortexes that occur. Some oppose each other. As the vapor is pulled down the center of that bubbler jar in a smooth surface, it has a natural spin between its magnetic north and south. As it moves, it goes downward and spins 3.14 spins. As it's being pulled back up in that jar, it will spin 3.14 the opposite direction, because it will always spin into a clockwise direction towards the vacuum. As it goes into the reactor pipe, if it's pointed north, there's another key. If it is pointed north when you start the engine up, it will spin 3.14 spins going along a smooth rod. It will not go straight. If you pointed the device south, it will go straight through. It will not spin. You do not get the intensity of the reaction. We have found that between tests in Australia and Germany, that this rod has 9 different fingerprints. And by understanding the 9 different fingerprints after running it for just 30 minutes, you can tell where on the planet the engine was run, south or north hemisphere. You can also tell what type of fuel was used, and you can also tell if the rod was the right length. So there's a lot of things we're learning. When my wife and I were on tour, we were at one show where she picked up the rod and looked at it. She says, honey, remember when you found out that this was described in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, verse 4? I said, yeah. And as that vapor is pulled to the north, energy is pulled into itself. She said, what was the next phrase? What was next? I said, I don't know. She said, I do. And as it came out from its chamber, it held the likeness of a man. I said, well, what does that have to do with Rob? She says, that's not a magnetic field. It's an aura. There's an aura around the rod. That's why glass rods, when they're used, have the same properties as metal. It held a north and a south. When you turn it around, north and south will shift a little. When you're pointed up, that's also north. So I took this and went over to one of the Curlier photography booths and set this down on his plate just to see what would happen. And it's got the most beautiful blue aura you've ever seen. 17 of the 31 phenomena that aren't in the science books were discovered by my wife. And it's really been fun to see the look on some of the scientists' face when she starts expressing and explaining what it is she's discovered. When she got to the point of one of the Tesla conferences, there was about 350 people in the room, and she started going into thermal momentum or thermal motion. She explained that the water will freeze at 38 degrees. And they're all kind of looking at each other going, she's off. But if you go down to 7-Eleven where they have a fridge at 38 degrees and you put a cup of water in there at 40 degrees and another cup that's 200 degrees, and then just sit back and watch them. In 25 minutes, the 200-degree water will have not only gotten to 38 degrees, but it goes all the way down to freezing and freezes. The other water isn't even down to 39 yet. The molecules aren't excited. Go back in 25 hours and they both get to 38 degrees at the same time. She was explaining that this same type phenomenon of overreaching its desired speed is what's happening in the reactor pipe, because it is in a vacuum. You've got hot and cold moving in opposite directions, which in the atmosphere gives you some beautiful lightning. In here, with the lights off, if you don't have the unit grounded, you will see the same lightning bolts around the chamber. If you put glass ends on each end of the chamber and bring the fuel in from the side and back out to the side, you can look inside the unit and see the lightning bolts, which is plasma. It's kind of interesting when you build a bigger unit and speed it up, because once you over-rev the engine is when you get the best lightning storms. We did that here in Phoenix about 4 years ago. One of the units we'd specially built insulators at both ends so that we could bring the fuel in through the chamber without any other contact back to the engine, with no metal contact, I should say. And we revved the engine up. The engine that we were using was 10 horse Briggs & Stratton that was set up to idle our maximum speed, 3,600 RPM. At 3,600 RPM, we motioned to have the lights turned off in the room. You could see beautiful little 1- and 2-inch lightning bolts all the way down the exhaust pipe, all the way around it. Just so that was really neat. Then we revved the engine up instead of 3,600 RPM, we got it up to about 5,000 RPM. And instead of seeing the little lightning bolts, you could see little plasmoids, little electrical lights that would come through the metal and just start spinning in all directions, just go crazy for about 10 seconds and vanish. They're bright orange. When they go poof, they're bright red. We've never filmed those before, but it definitely got everybody's attention. We then revved it up to about 10,000 RPM, and some of the guys that were sitting in the front couple rows decided to move back a few rows. We have over-revved them many times where our analyzer can only read up to 10,000, and we're maxed out. But when you get it to that speed and it's not grounded, you'll get lightning bolts that are completely just suspended in air above it that do not disappear until you slow the machine down. When we did that show at Gordon Hormel's property out there were a lot of scientists there that when we were all done, all they could do was go, ooh and ah. One of the gentlemen walked up to Mike, who was doing that presentation that day, and Mike had said, I hope all of you feel you got your money's worth. One guy walked up there, pulled his money out, whipped out another 100, and he said, you're not charging enough. He says, if you'd have told me that you were going to show me a plasma show, I would not have believed it to be something physical outside of a unit. Maybe in a glass ball you can do something, but not physical in the atmosphere. So we have been able to accomplish a lot of things. We do ground all the units. We are not positive of what that effect might be on a pacemaker. So therefore, we don't encourage people to be shooting lightning out all over the place. We have tried to confine it so that it's as small as possible. And I've just released here, just in the last 48 hours, just how small you can build these units. Instead of using the bigger rods like we are on these lawnmowers, you could build it so that the entire reaction chamber is smaller than that. We have not disclosed a lot of the other test results and knowledge we have in the field until we felt it was ready. There's a few people I see here that I met before we started going public with a lot of it. And it was really fun. At one of the shows I was doing, we had 20 people that wanted to buy the plans and go through a workshop with me. So they all bought the plans to put it on cars. And at the end of that presentation, after 3 hours of my explaining to those gentlemen how to build it to put it on your own car, I said, is everybody happy with what they've learned? Is there anyone now that has any questions? And there were no questions. I said, okay, now for the fun part. If you take the plans, and instead of calling this an exhaust pipe, you turn it sideways and call this a chimney. That becomes a furnace now. So the same exact parts needed for a car can be used for a locomotive, for a lawnmower, for a furnace, for a boiler, or anything else that uses fuel. We're looking at trying to simplify all of these things as much as we can and get the prices down so that the average person can afford it. The prices were at $400 for the air management valves. We just dropped those to $275. The exhaust pipes were $300, $400, and $500, depending on which one you want. They're all $175. If you want it chromed, it's $65 extra. But by getting it to the point where people can afford it, there's going to be a lot of these things rolling around real fast. If you do decide you want to come to the school, on day one, you're going to learn the theory behind it. You're going to be handling the rods, you're going to be testing those rods, you're going to go down in that shop, you're going to be running an engine with brand new rods, pulling the rods out, checking those magnetic fields so that you know if anyone ever says, can you put it on this piece of equipment, you'll know how to do it. Are you going to want to? Nah, not if you have to make all the parts. You're going to probably specialize in 350 Chevys, or just in semis, or just in small engines. There's going to be a lot of specialty shops, but that's all they want to do is their favorite projects. But some people out there do want to know it all. They want to understand that technology. Most of them right now signing up saying, I want all the technology, are professors that right now cannot go back into their classrooms this next semester and teach anything if they don't know how to do it. So we have a nice captive audience out there because they realize if Berlin's doing it, Stuttgart's doing it, they're doing it over here. If they're not teaching it, you're out in the cold. Because the students are going to go where they can learn it. Second day of class, you're going to come in, you're going to see a brand new lawnmower. A little tag on the handle with your name on it, that's yours. You're going to put one on that lawnmower. You're going to watch a video, see how it's done. The tools will all be laying there. They're going to be clean, spotless shop. You're going to pick up those nice clean tools, take the parts off, put it together. You're going to hook it up to the analyzer. You're going to learn how to adjust it. So at the end of the second day, you'll not only put it on one of these, you'll be putting it on a generator. Now, since that's the first baby you've built of this technology, it's up to you. Do you want to buy the unit, or we take it over to our showroom and we sell it? The next day, I want to have you guys build a furnace, a fully functioning furnace, which, if you build it right, it becomes an air conditioning system, a heating system, a full power system for your home, replaces your need for natural gas or propane. And you can also fill your extra bottles up to run your vehicles. Then you don't need a GEET unit on your car. You just need a hose going from that tank into your air intake. Bottle up your own fuel at home. Then we want to move you on to cars. If you don't want to go through the whole course and say, well, no, I just want to take class 1 and class 2 and 3 because that's all I'm interested in, fine. It's $1,500 a week, which comes out to $300 a day. So if all you want small engine, come in for small engine. If you want to come in for diesels, that's on Friday. Want to come in on auto, that's Thursday. All of it will be posted on the website. But we want the people coming in, going out that door, understanding what GEET is. And we're doing it in the simplest possible fashion. A nuclear physicist that came in to prove we were frauds about 5 years ago, Dr. Su from China, when he and 2 engineers, one being his son, showed up, he told me ahead of time, I'm here for one purpose. I prove you fraud. That's a good shot. Which shop do you want to start with? We turned him loose on about 9 different pieces of equipment for testing. After 3 days, he came back, held up the little rod, and he says, what you do for 50 cents, maybe $2 from a hardware store, we do for billions of dollars in 7-mile circle. But big difference is not price tag. Big difference is yours works. He bought the state rights for Michigan, Ohio, and Kansas. Right there on the spot. They decided, we're not walking out of here without a piece of this company. They wanted to be the main state distributor, so they picked the areas they wanted. Right now, there are several states available. If any of you are interested, come see me during the next few days. On the school, it is on a first-come, first-served basis, because the first week or two, if we handle more than 15 people, we're going to be buried. So we're just going to handle 15 people at a time until we can expand. I anticipate after the first 3 days of advertising, we had over 150 people call, all wanting to come to school. We've put everybody off until the end of this conference, giving the people at this conference first shot at getting in the school. It starts on August 7th, 5 days long each one, Monday through Friday. You'll have to find your own hotel accommodations. There's plenty of hotels there, but we will be serving a breakfast, a continental breakfast there at the shop. We'll be serving a lunch at the shop. Anyone with special dietary needs, we will make sure that the food they need is there. But once you get to the shop in the morning, I don't want you leaving there until you're done for the day. I want to know you put in your 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever you feel you're up to doing. And we want to cram as much knowledge in you in 1 week as possible. We're also looking at setting up state shops. This is the international school. Within the first week or two, we want to start bringing in the different state distributors that do want to participate in setting up in their own state and any surrounding state. Because there's no way this can grow fast enough to satisfy the public's needs. Right now, we are negotiating with several different car companies that build kit cars. GM, Ford, and Chrysler over the years have told us where to go. They didn't want to work with us. Well, that's good. I don't really want to work with them either. So we've decided we're going to get kit cars. Beautiful little imitation Ferraris and whatever. I want to see how many kit cars can I buy a month that I can retrofit, where every car on one of my lots gets anywhere from 50 to 100 miles to the gallon. Then I want to open up across the street from Chevy, Ford, Chrysler, all the rest of them. Because when the people look over at those really neat kit cars, and some of them are pretty good looking, and they start looking at the windshield that doesn't have a price tag, it's just got miles per gallon. Do I really want to spend that $42,000 on that new Suburban, or would I rather be getting 88 miles to the gallon? That's real simple math. But I want them to feel it. I want them to know that there's some competition out there. And I want to do it right under their noses. I've tried working with Caterpillar, Cummins, Cooper, all the big engine companies. They've all come out. I've got the sign-up book when they all showed up at my property. Signed in, they saw the big diesel running, and they said, you'll never get to the marketplace. We won't let you. Well, right now, I've got 240,000 trucks that have been offered to my wife and I in the last 5 months since we put up the picture that we're working on the first semi. We've got trucking companies from all over the world going, I don't really give a damn about my warranty. I really don't care what that factory says I can't do on my truck. I care about getting triple my mileage. So we're getting a lot of the truck companies now saying, if they cancel the warranty, we will cancel our purchase of all new trucks. Now, why don't you tell J.B. Hunt that he can't buy a new truck because you're not going to put this on the truck for him. I have a funny feeling we aren't going to get all their business. Because they've already said if they have to lose the warranty to get double and triple the mileage, it's worth it. If they have to lose the warranty and prove that they can get 5 to 10 times the life out of the engine, guess who's going to hurt? The same big corporations that did not want to take advancements. So it's gotten to the point now, it is a paradigm shift as far as who's in control of what. And we're looking at, within the next 7 to 10 days, opening the first school and being able to produce 15 of these a day, 15 of these a day, 20 of these a week, and having the product going out the door. It's been a long, hard battle. I'll go into questions now if anybody has questions.
I guess I have. Is there a microphone?
Talk loud and I'll repeat the question.
All right. How many of these units do you have on cars already? I mean, how many would you estimate out there that people are running and using?
How many units are on cars right now? If you're talking about parts that came from us, I would have to guesstimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 300-400 cars in the U.S., probably another 50 over in Europe. As far as how many are there in the world right now, most of the people who bought plans, put them on their cars, aren't telling people. So it could be 5,000, 10,000, I have no idea.
Okay. Another question. 2 years ago, you said you had a car you drove 84 miles on 2 tablespoons full of fuel.
That's the car that keeps me alive, thank you.
That's about 2,000 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
Why are you suppressing this information? Why don't you let that out? That's very interesting.
Well, I have met with many corporate people. I met with OPEC. Some of the people from OPEC came to visit me in Mali last year. They were not too thrilled with seeing GEET on the market getting 3 and 4 times the money. But they could live with. They're just going to triple or quadruple the price of oil. But they also told me that for about $1 million they could have me guaranteed knocked off.
So they threatened your life?
No, they didn't. They just mentioned that things like that could happen.
That's why you're not putting it out? I mean,
No. I wasn't interested in the $3 billion offer. I said, I'm here to help clean up this planet. I'm going to do it. They said that they really didn't like my attitude on that issue. And I said, well, I've given out 20 sets of plans to 20 different church leaders. And those 20 sets of plans that I passed out will teach those 20 people and everybody they email it to around the world how to run the car on pure water. All you need is gas to start it up. 1 tablespoon. After they heard that, they smiled and said, you have a very good insurance policy. And that has been my insurance policy since 1983. I will not release that one to the public because of the damage it would do to world economies. Our government runs off of that state tax, road tax, all the rest of it. If we yanked every dime of that out, and we no longer have any oil coming out of some of the countries which support their people by selling that oil, if we drastically change the world economy that much, you're going to create some wars. I don't want to create wars. I want to clean up the planet. I feel that within the next 5 to 7 years, yes, we can come out with cars like that. A brand new car from the ground up that'll be able to run on just water. But you're going to have to look at the taxation problems. How bad is that really going to hurt our economy? What can we do to help offset that? Is that car going to be sold so that you have to go in and have it read every year for registration and pay your 5 cents or 3 cents per 100 mile or whatever it is? But if you're running your car on water, that is not helping any of the world economy. I know it would help you, but right now that's what's keeping me alive.
all right.
I've lost 3 wives over this venture in the last 21 years that saw all this money going down the drain on something that just, oh, how can you spend the money on that? Nobody's going to care. I was amazed as I traveled this country how many people in this country don't care. We've had people walk up to us at some of the booths, at some of the shows we did. One guy walked up and he said, well, triple the mileage. Well, that'd hurt the economy. And other people said, just But who cares? I'm going that way, the pollution's going that way. But this is the mentality we're fighting in this country. There's a lot of people that don't care. All they want to know is they're going to get up in the morning, they're going to go to work, they're going to get a paycheck on Friday, they're going to come home, they're going to go do their thing. They're just stuck in their rut. And anything that deviates from their rut, they don't want to hear. They close their ears. So this is to get us out of that rut. And right now, I'm happy with marketing a product that is not a threat to anybody, that only reduces pollution 95%. Doesn't have to be perfect to 100% today. Not until we have thousands of shops all over the world that we can come out with a product like the other products. And then, yes, they can be marketed. I've had over 600 inventors that have approached my wife and I from around the world wanting us to market their technology. Right now, if you look at GEET and GEET's website, there's one product, GEET. There are no more purple plates, there's no more health products, there's no more agricultural things listed, nobody else's product. It is my technology on that site, and that's what we're promoting. If other people want to market other things, that's fine. Once GEET gets to the point of expansion to start marketing other technologies, they will all be made available. I've seen devices, I've been approached by people to market things to pull water out of the air, electricity out of the air, to use the phone system just by screwing it into the ground. You can call anywhere in the world. I've been approached with all these different great technologies. But I'm one man, I'm setting up one company, and I'm trying to set it up as fast as I can to expand every corner of the planet. And that's my first priority. So I want to clean up the air. I want to clean up the pollution coming out of the engines. We need all the people out there we can that are qualified. I've had a lot of people say, well, if you're a good Christian trying to do this, why don't you just give it away? Because the first people to take advantage of it, if I gave it away right now, is the big corporations. And they'd have a ball with it. Right now, I've already prepared the lawsuit. It's 7,800 pages thick. That's my opening statement. So if GM, Ford, and Chrysler decide they want to start putting this on a car, or MIT, who's got real close to infringement on me, let them try it. I'm going to wait till they have their first warehouse filled. Then I'm filing a federal action against them. It'll cost them 40 or 50 million just to respond to my first filing. So I've got 20 and a half years of preparation for this next week and a half to open that school. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, we're also supposed to hit there, yes?
Tell us what website you want to go to.
www.geet.com. There will be other websites linked to us. Bob Colvin will be up in just a minute to talk about some of his things. We are trying to link to every university in the world that is working with us. You will not see us linked to MIT for that purpose. You'll see us linked to MIT's website so that you can look at what they tried to copy, claiming they invented it. It sure looks a lot like a GEET. The only difference is, instead of having an exhaust from the engine going into the chamber, they put a heater there and said, oh, look, this is different. The problem was, they didn't understand any of the principles behind a rod. Theirs doesn't work but 25% efficient. So I've even got them right now, they can't fight this one. Okay, are there any other questions? Yes?
Have you approached the farming community, like tractors and that area, because they don't have the restrictions that the other vehicles do?
Yes, I have approached the farming industry. Very little interest. The farmers were interested. John Deere and all the other tractor companies said, get out of here. We've been doing it this way for 100 years. We're going to do it the way we're doing it. So we are looking at it as soon as possible. I was just speaking a couple of days ago about possibly buying a lawnmower company, buying a small tractor company, and just start coming out with my own companies. There are ways to leverage those type loans based on sales. And I know right now, with the number of people in this country that would like to get that extra gas savings, I know I can get the sales. We've had people, well, we've got to be off in 5 minutes, so I'll turn it over to you in just a second. Bob's going to get up and run the lawnmower in just a minute. Yes?
With motorhomes, it would seem that they
It's funny you say that. As we travel across the United States, we saw a lot of motorhomes pulled into gas stations, tried to strike conversations up with them about, what kind of mileage do you get? You know what the typical answer was? Look down their nose at you and go, if you have to worry about the mileage, you can't afford one. Great conversationists. No, they attack. At my booth, there'll be magazines, newspapers, photographs of a lot of the different things we put it on, a lot of the different letters we've had, magazines from Europe, articles from Russia. Every year we're in the Korean Scientific Symposium. And now I've heard that we also have offices in Hong Kong and Beijing. I have not got the literature on that yet. We did get pictures from the ranch when I first opened the school, because we were going to run the school at the ranch, which was a disaster. I have to apologize to my wife for that if I get to talk to her again. But having people at your home 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, is not a good, healthy thing for any relationship. But we did have students from Peru, South Africa, India, Pakistan. They flew in for the first few weeks of training. And it was fun to hear the different people in their own languages jumping up and down in the shop. I'm running on 95% water and gas in my diesel. And they run around the shop, they're just dancing. And I was standing there smiling, just, okay, so what? We've done that before. But congratulations. The excitement level of some of these people, that they still have those doubts in their mind when they flew in. Does this thing really work? Is this guy really going to be able to teach me how to do it? We had one engineer who came in from Canada. He spent a week there. He took the generator apart, put it back together, over and over. Well, how do I know it's really doing this? How do I know? I said, here's a factory unit right here that we have not touched. Put in 8 ounces of gas, start it up, see how long it runs under a load, and then do the same thing with ours. He came up about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, and said, I did it. I said, what'd you find? He says, I'm getting triple the energy out of the fuel using your device. I said, what does that tell you? He said, something's wrong with my figures. I said, how much gas did you put in it? He said, 8 ounces. How long did it run? 3 times longer than it did when I put it in the other one. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, that's impossible. You can't get more energy out of gas than there is in it. And I said, the engine that you're trying to compare it to is so inefficient. Well, not according to the manufacturer. I called them. How many of us have seen 50%, 80% efficiency things written on boxes? And we buy it because it's in black and white. We got a call or email 2 months ago from the National Research Institute, and they were comparing a standard Coleman home furnace right from the factory against our unit. The Coleman unit was 92% efficient, according to their figures. They wanted to know why, when they hooked it up to a GEET and ran the same unit on a GEET, why they got 300% improvement. Because there isn't that many BTUs of energy. If there's 3 times more BTU output than there is input, where'd it come from? I said, well, that's easy. You know, you just have to say before GEET and after GEET, because it's only 30% efficient. And they said, based on a cubic foot of gas having this many BTU, you can't get 3 times that out of a furnace. I said, what were your findings? 3 times that. Then you did. But you can't. So this is the mentality we've had to fight with the educated people. There has been a lot of fun to it. I think we are out of time here. We're supposed to shut down here about 5 minutes ago. So if there aren't any more questions. Yes?
Could you explain how you start this up before it begins to generate a gas? What does it start with?
Okay. Tyler. We're going to move that camera and point it straight towards that lawnmower, and Bob's going to give us a demonstration with the lawnmower. Okay, make it a shag. That'll do. That's fine. The red valve he just shut off at the front, where the muffler is completely shut off, stopping all exhaust from escaping from the engine at this time. It's called zero pollution. Lawnmowers normally put out 65 times more pollution per hour than cars can. What? Right now it's just gas. Yeah. It starts out as gasoline, but when you do this closed loop functioning, what happens is it turns the gasoline into a heavy paraffin when you're all done. So you actually have more fuel when you finish than you did when you started. Yeah, tell that one to a scientist.
What about this technology being used on boats?
On a boat, you
Yeah.
want to run. If you're using the technology on a boat, you want to use 80 to 85% water as fuel. So you have your fuel tank all around you and it's safe.